Before joining VMware, Mohit worked with Infogain, Wipro, and CMC Limited. Mohit owns product portfolio in observability and strategizing for product positioning and go-to-market, GTM. Also, apart from being an engineer by profession, Mohit is an author by passion and currently planning to publish his book on product management. Welcome, Mohit, and all the best. And up next, we have Divya. Hi, Divya. Divya is the director of products at GitHub and leads the education team there. She has over 18 years of experience working in product and program management domain across multiple brands like EA, Infosys, TCS, etc. Before joining GitHub, she was part of developer division at Microsoft, working in different areas like DevOps, automated testing, chat ops, and marketplace. She comes with a successful track record of bringing structure to process and ensuring smooth experience across customers for multiple domains. Welcome, Divya. So welcome, Smita.
Yes.
Thank you. Welcome, Mohit, Smita, Divya. Once again, happy to have you on board here and powered on this panel discussion powered by NASSCOM. A big thanks to NASSCOM before we start for helping us with this platform, allowing everyone under the same roof. And such events actually help a lot, not just in networking and getting together, but learning from each other. And I'm sure you all will have a good, valuable learning experience in next 60 minutes or so of the session. A note to the audience, if you have any questions and answers, 10-15 minutes towards the end for getting all your questions and answers answered by our panelists. So if you have any question, please feel free to use your Q&A chat window. If you want to direct a question to a specific panel member, please mention the name, right? So let's start from here. Like product managers and product management sometimes become very confused terms, as I said in my earlier note as well. Like I'd like to start from there, and basically you all coming in from different experiences and rich experiences in both startups and kind of enterprise world. Can each one of you explain what is product management, the role of a product manager, and how it's important in your respective that role is important in your respective product success? So we'll start with Smita. Smita, can you help us with your thoughts and importance around building a culture with product manager at the center? And then we'll pass on to Mohit and Divya.
Oh, sure. You're starting with the heavy hitter questions, so love it. So first of all, happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about it. This product management is a passion project for me, just like Mohit is passionate about being an author. Being a woman in tech, woman in leadership, and especially in product management, there's very few of us here, so I'm happy to have survived this long. So thank you, first of all, for that. Second, product management is a function. My standard joke that I make to a lot of people is I've been doing product management way before people understood what product management was. They thought it was project management. And that confusion continues sometimes. And I say, yeah, we do project management when it needs to be done, but that's not what we do. So product management is the function. It's the function of, I liked what you said about the product manager being in the center of the universe. We like to think of it that way because we actually work with just about every function in the company, right? So our primary interfaces are to the customer, and the customer could be external, it could be internal customers. We work with finance, legal, engineering, obviously, and in most mature organizations, product management also encompasses user experience function. It also encompasses technical publications. So everything that touches the experience that a customer has working with the product. So that's the product management function. And the role of a product manager, as you were saying, especially in an agile world, it's starting to get differentiated, right? I mean, I've been doing product management when product management and product marketing was actually one person. I did both, right? But now those are more distinct functions where product marketing is a distinct function, product management is a distinct function. And with the introduction of more agile practices globally, I think what's going on is you have product managers who are more agile practitioners, and they are more inward focused, working very closely with engineering. And those tend to be called either technical product manager or a product owner type role. And then you have product managers who are focused on the market, looking at the competition and working closely with the customers. And those tend to be called product managers. But designation aside, I think all of these roles have to be customer centric. Otherwise, we're not building a product that's going to delight anybody.
Wonderful. Well said. Thank you so much, Smita. I like the term in terms of, you mentioned we work with a lot of people, right? Finance and legal and marketing and sales and support and customer success. That reminded me of a Dan Olson kind of a quote wherein he said, Spider-Man's motto is, with great power comes great responsibility. But when you talk about product manager, it's with great responsibility comes no power, right? So we'll touch base upon that as and when we move forward. But let me hand it over to Mohit. Mohit, how do you see the evolution of this role in your experience, right? What, according to you, is making this role even more important day by day, quarter on quarter, year on year?
Yeah, first of all, again, thanks a lot to NASSCOM, Abhijit, and, the great panel that we have today. And I totally agree with Smita when she mentioned about the whole function and the way we touch, from, I would say, incubation, from an idea, right? The product managers, I think the first thing that we start is that as soon as you have an idea and you have identified a problem, or maybe you stumbled upon a problem, from there till even after the solution, we, at times we tend to stop, okay, have we solved the problem? If we have solved the problem, after that, has it really solved the problem? How are we tracking it? Like, how are the users doing that particular part? And with, the latest technology trends, particularly the way this role becomes even more important is that the kind of speed we are living in, the kind of life we are living today, and every moment when we are evolving, the evolution is continuing within the life itself, right? And everything, and that's where, the product manager's role becomes really interesting, where you are trying to solve the problem at the speed at which they are occurring, right? We have seen, like, last couple of years, we all have been through this pandemic, right? Everyone has been affected, everyone on the globe, right? And during this time, we have seen so many innovations coming up, springing up immediately, right? Even connecting the waste food, connecting, finding the right places to distribute the ration and all those kind of things that we have seen, right? And somewhere there were, like, even though there were no, I would say, the formal product managers behind the scenes when they were developing this whole scenes, but they were like, those skills were being used, right, to solve the real life problems in the real time. And that is, to me, the importance of this role is, because it touches from the solution, from the problem till after the solution. So that is my take on that.
Absolutely. Our role or our job doesn't end. There is no end to it. We are like souls, right? We move from one body to other body. We're always there. Right?
Yeah.
That was too deep for 7 a.m. in the morning.
Sorry for that. Smita, Divya, do you have any additional details that you want to add from your side?
Yeah, the only one piece that I would add is also the phase we are in right now. Like, I feel across our companies as well, we're moving above the stack from knowing how to solve problems. So like the technology, AI, ML, data, cloud, all of that has really progressed. So now it's more about what problems to solve. So moving up the stack as well. And where, again, product managers becomes that nexus around which a lot of things, like, if I can say, it becomes the success of that company as well, of what problems are we solving, and then going to that intersection of, from a business perspective, the technology perspective, and the experience perspective, which again is a function of product management. So I feel very much as product managers are like at the nexus of success of the company too. The other piece that I would want to add as well for product managers is also the role kind of spans across multiple activities, whether it is strategic at some point in time to being tactical, to actually working with marketing. So again, in different phases of the product, in different phases of our own careers, it becomes, and we morph into different people, like you said, different souls at different times. So that's the key part that I would want to add to all that Smita and Mohit already shared.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Divyam. That's a logical segue to my next question to all of you. You talked about different technologies. Technologies come and go. Markets stay there. The jobs stay there. And that adds a little more kind of a flavor to what, as a product manager, I need to prepare myself for this next job, right? So product managers generally are considered to be strategic thinkers. If you look at companies in my experience, like Oracles and Cerners and a few enterprise companies, they were initially, the product managers were originally called as product strategists. They were strategic thinkers out there. They were converted into product managers later, right? They're usually innovators. Now, where do you expect a product manager spend their time, most of their time, on while working on specific product or service, tactical, strategic management included? More specifically, what I'm trying to understand is the scope of work. Is there any limit to the scope of work that they do? So Mohit, I'll start with you here. What are your thoughts?
No, Vijit. So one thing is definitely there is no scope. There is no limit to the scope because we are boundless. Like that is how the work, the things work. But I totally agree with you. A great product manager, I would say, will always be thinking about strategy, even though he or she is not working on the strategic parts. Maybe like she's totally involved into the execution at one point in time. But because this thing also depends on what level of hierarchy you are at. If you are like a junior PM, you will not be bothered and you will not have that kind of a skill set and the vision also. Yeah? It takes time to build up that. That's number one. Number two is even on the product side also, right? The product, where exactly your product is in the life cycle of the product itself. If you are working on a particular product which is about to go end of life, it has seen the glory, and now you need not to be strategic about it, right? You just put it onto the auto mode and you just work on the other part. And I think third part where I would say is we as like leaders, product leaders, they always have to keep that eye onto the market trends, as you mentioned, right? The technologies evolve, the problems evolve. If you just spend a little time, I would say 20 to 30% time also keeping an eye, you will always be able to catch those early trends and then bring them back and put it into the strategy. So there's no thing that today I wake up, have a coffee, today I'll do strategy. It's not like that, right? We all do it day in. It's all in the day's job, right? We keep changing the hats even during the day. So that's what I would say.
Perfect. I like that. Smita, I'm going to throw not a different, but kind of a next question, logical question of this. Whatever Mohit just mentioned in terms of where exactly product managers or leaders spend some part of their time onto, from the perspective of some measurement metrics, right? A person is doing their job as a product manager. How would you measure the success of a product manager?
Actually, I love that question. So a long time ago, a leader of mine in product management said, you can only be as successful as your product, right? So if you're a fantastic product manager, but your product is not successful in the market, and success can be defined in different ways. It could be number of logos, revenue it's driving, number of customers, adoption, so many different metrics you can track. It could be net promoter score. It could be CSAT. There's so many measures for this, right? But you're only as successful as the product. So you could be a great product manager on a product that's unsuccessful, and you will be unsuccessful, right? And you could be an average product manager on a highly successful product, and you're going to ride the wave to success. So I think that's a very important lesson at every at every point, we have to evaluate that in our product management journeys and careers to see, am I riding the wave, or am I just a passionate product manager, but stuck with a product that is not that successful?
Excellent. That well kind of ties back to the scope of the work, right? If I'm as a product manager, I'm successful, but marketing and sales and support, they're not successful, probably I cannot enjoy my success. So the scope is so wide in terms of working with each one of these stakeholders to make them successful as well. So that you would enjoy the real success of you as a product manager role and of the product itself. Divya, coming back to you in terms of certain scope of work in enterprise versus startup, but what is your take on it in terms of the scope is a little different, right, in both these worlds, or the ownership that the product manager takes?
Yeah, but before I go to the scope of work, there was one piece that I wanted to add on the success. So Smita talked about the product success or the value to the customer that we bring about, and there are various metrics there. I think from a product manager, and the minute a manager gets added, there are these leadership asks as well. So the other category I would put for a product manager success is also the people success of it. Whether, again, Smita pointed to the customer satisfaction or the NPS that comes from customers, but a lot of product managers also have that onus of team motivation. Like, is my engineering team excited to work on this problem? And that onus also comes to a product manager. So the people success from that perspective, or the people success even from a stakeholder satisfaction perspective also comes on product managers. So when it comes to success, I think of it as two buckets. One is obviously the product and how successful is my product. And wonderfully, like Smita said, am I riding the wave or I'm making the wave? And the second one is the people part. When it comes to scope, and it's a very interesting question between enterprises and startups, it's a very it depends question response, unfortunately, because it is the way I think of it. The constraints change between an enterprise and a startup. And again, which series or where you are in the startup life cycle as well. And when I say constraints, what I mean is as well, like people think of enterprises not having any constraints, but actually enterprises have a lot of constraints as well when it comes to product management, because there might be another product in this big company where people have already solved it. So you can't go solve that same problem, or you have to live with the constraints that are built by previous success of the products. So you have to kind of walk that path or not sway a lot out of it. So there are multiple constraints there as well. And in when it comes to startups, the constraints change. Again, it depends on, so unfortunately, it's a very, it depends question and the situation and the circumstance. But again, it brings those awesome opportunities as a product manager to innovate and to get better. Like if I'm in a startup where money is a problem, I would think about innovative ways so that cost of customer acquisition is really, really low and we can invest actually in the product instead of marketing. We're solving the same problem, but in an absolutely different way. So that again, something that startups do really well, and enterprises many times have competes and shareholders and other constraints to fall on. Yeah. So yeah.
So true, very true. The enterprises, what I have seen in my experience, correct me if I'm wrong, are very heavy in terms of processes. They're very structured processes, but this sometimes becomes a little slower in terms of implementation. When it comes to startup, they have unstructured processes, but they're quick and they're faster, right? And that's where then the product managers, the real challenge comes in if a product manager joins from a startup to an enterprise and vice versa. A product manager who is successful and an enterprise joins a startup. Of course, the foundations and base remains the same, but the kind of tools and techniques that they need to use changes a bit. It's almost 25, 26 minutes. We haven't talked about stats and numbers and data. So let me put some stats before my next question. CB Insights quoted that 52% of the products fail, right? As there was no need for these products in the markets in the first place. So almost half of the products are not needed in markets. 30 to 33% of the time the product team is spending in building products these products are not used by the customers, or the features, functionalities, right? With this scale of costs and metrics associated all across, how do you see a product manager can help reduce this gap? These are bad numbers. Bad is an understatement for me. But with the concept of a product market fit, I want to build a product which is required by the users, required by the customers. So Divya, how do you see this, and help us out with some parameters you expect a product manager or product management team on this?
Okay, let's start with say an example. So you've identified a problem that needs to be solved. The approach that I have seen successful, and we follow in GitHub, in Microsoft as well, is hypothesis-based development. So understanding whether the product is really solving that problem or not. So before we even go to solving, does the problem really exist or not? So there are a few hypotheses that would go define. And the key part here from a mindset perspective also is, as important it is to validate a hypothesis, it's even more important to invalidate a hypothesis. So it might be that you do the market research and understand, oh no, this persona care about a problem, but not care enough to pay for it, or like other hypotheses like this. So this hypothesis-based development is been really, really useful. And again, there are two ways to approach at it, both quantitatively and qualitatively as well. And I like the quantitative part as well, because it removes the biases out of it. Like many times, I don't know if you've heard about the positive outcome bias, where you fixated on how you want to see the data, or what you're hearing from customers as well. So we rely a lot on customer research while confirming on the problem, then actually using that data to go solve that problem as well, the pre-user study, all of that. The next big piece, once that's solidified and we know the problem and what to solve and how to solve, is then defining the MVP. And again, the minimal viable product. And the emphasis there as well is maximizing the learning and validation with the least efforts. Like it might sometimes be just a manual process where we share it with folks to get that understanding again, whether it's really solving the problem before doing the engineering investment, or maximizing that the investment to make it more whatever, so that we can improve the numbers that you've spoken about before, and have the product being more successful. So the key pieces that I'll share about is identifying the problem, and once it's identified, doing that analysis or research pre-hand, and then continuing on that research. I'm a big follower and a fan of DevOps, and I like bringing that principle of continuous improvement and continuous learning to product management as well, so that we continue to ship to learn and get better at what we're doing, instead of doing a big North Star and falling flat on our faces.
Wonderful. Very well said, Divya. Thank you so much. I mean, I've heard from a lot of product managers, MVPs and PMFs. These are just fancy buzzwords. Don't run behind them. Those are not. And you just kind of proved them wrong. So thanks a lot for adding those thoughts. Smita, we all love to have usable, lovable, delightful, adaptable systems and products. Like, is it ever possible to achieve those? Is it 100% usable products?
That's the North Star. We want highly usable products. Obviously, again, part of the success is, after we have determined, just to add, I wanted to add one thing to what Divya said. Her answer was beautiful. It was very articulate and comprehensive. This is also a little bit, the lean product management principles, right? Build a little, fail fast, learn from it, and redo, right? The traditional way in which we were going after, again, using Divya's words, the North Star, right? The waterfall method just did not work, because the needs of the market had changed by the time you could get your MRD written, your PRD written, by the time engineering debated about it and said, where did you get your requirements? I don't agree with the requirements. And I've dragged enough engineering managers with me to customers to hear it from the horse's mouth, right? And then of course we go and we kind of build, and by then the market has moved on, right? So I love lean product management, where you're iterating, you're learning, and you're building something that is the need of the hour for the customer. So sorry, that was for the previous question. To your current question of highly usable product, I think one part of the previous question we didn't answer is, so building instrumentation and observability into the product. You said, our products, how do we know our products are being used? What should we invest in? That 30% waste you talked about. I think any product manager building any product, if you have the luxury of starting from scratch, please make this a basic requirement for your product, that you need to know what is being used. Put some, it again depends on what kind of product it is. At a minimum, some Google Analytics, some, it could be Pendo, it could be, depends on what kind of product you have, right? And your tech stack and what's compatible with the tech stack. But please put some instrumentation observability into it, so you have visibility to what is useful for your customers, right? Now, coming to usability. This is actually, if everyone thinks they're a product manager in a company, forget that. Everyone thinks they're a UX designer. And ignore, because everyone's got eyes, right? So they think they know how to design. That's a formal function. These people are trained in human-computer interaction. They have degrees in how this is done, okay? So please respect the function and pay attention to it, right? If you creating delightful customer experiences, yes, starts with the eyes. So what they see, they need to be wowed by it. That's UI. But whether they'll use is based on that interaction design. So I can't say enough about usability and paying attention to that. If you don't know what UX is, that should be your first lesson before you think about product management. Go for it, Divya.
Yeah, Divya.
I think, Divya, you're frozen.
She froze. She froze.
She liked my answer so much. She just said, I'm going to leave my hand up.
So maybe, yeah, maybe by the time she comes back, I want to add a couple of points to that, Smita. Yeah.
And my
So
question to you, once you answer that, is again coming in from what Smita and Divya mentioned, the difference that we make in an industry, whether it's a startup or whether it's an enterprise, between an okay product and a great product, right? Between a satisfied customer versus a delighted customer. So once you answer once you add your thoughts on what Smita just mentioned, also add in your thoughts to these points as well.
yeah, and it's not only, that's also a good question, Abhijit. And it's not only what Smita said, like Smita and Divya both have mentioned the whole part. They have covered almost everything, right? Failing fast, understanding customers and everything, right? And going through that iteration path. And, one of the things that, Smita highlighted, which is exactly the point where, we have to, as product managers, we have to, before even we put the ask or the requirement, if we think about the success metric of that particular ask, how will I measure, right? If engineering, because every company has amazing engineers, designers, everyone will do their best. They will do whatever you're asking in an ideal world, right? After lots of discussions. But even after that, how will you make sure that, your feature was successful, or whatever you asked was successful? That was one point. And the second point, which is again going back to the same thing, how do you ensure that the teams are motivated enough to do the right things, is if you know why are you doing it, which connects with the current question that you have, is how do you delight the customer? If you know the customer, if you know the user of your product well enough, detailed enough, going deep enough, I think that is one of the primary keys. And, here, a couple of stories maybe I can share, which will point, and this is like going back to the same story which Smita said. We are doing product management way before we started as a formal title as a product manager, product owner and all. This I'm talking about very early in my career, first 6 months, I am in job. There is a product which we are deploying. It's an e-governance product which we are deploying into the fields of Punjab, where it will deliver the electricity to the farmers on a rotational basis, saving the energy for the electricity board. Think about it. Very simple, fresh out of college, you are in the field trying to interact with the customers and users. So that's where I first learned my lesson about being the user and the customer who is different, right? Understanding that persona when I look at in hindsight. Because what happened is, if there is a fault in the system, the farmers will not get the electricity for the whole night. And if that is the night when they are about to get the water, think about it. And we have seen those scenarios where, they were ready with their sticks in their hands in the morning in the substation. So understanding the real problem is when you can actually delight the customers. That's first story. Second story, which is a very recent one I heard in one of the sessions, is there is a husband-wife who is going on a highway trip, right? They stop the car and, they take whatever breakfast, and they ask the person to get 1 cup of tea. There are two, they ask for 1 cup of tea. That person, the waiter, he comes back with 1 full glass of tea. They ask for a glass of tea and an empty glass, thinking that they will do a buy two. And they were like delighted beyond words that, this guy is thinking 1 step ahead. So if we tie it back all together, if we can think just 1 step ahead to delight our customers, and if we know them, of course, first we have to know that persona, that user, that whole thing, a day in a life, which is my favorite topic. So that is what will make the difference. So yeah, that's how you can delight the customers.
Absolutely. A lot of companies, it remembered me again. I have a good friend in Intuit, and they follow this follow me home kind of a model, right? So they literally, I heard that their product managers literally followed the customers in terms of what they're buying, how they're driving, where they're going home and things like that. And according
it works.
Yeah.
And it works.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks, Mohit. Hey, welcome back, Divya. We lost you for less than a minute, but you wanted to add some points to what Smita said?
No, I think I was done. I was just talking about beta testing and using that for usability.
Wonderful. The next point is my favorite one, because I believe if you're not good at this as product managers, I don't know where we land up and where our products would land up. Different organizations do it differently, but stakeholder management is one of the still most critical areas and aspects where the product managers sometimes fail to reach the mark, right? I've seen innumerous examples that very talented, very talented product managers fail to do this kind of influence without authority kind of a thing, right? More specifically startups, since they don't have lots of layers of decision making or roles, a quick and stakeholders communications, this has kind of become a challenge as you scale up, and becomes a challenge when you get into the enterprise world product management, and wherein the difference is deep relationships you maintain when you are in a startup kind of a world versus wide networks kind of that you build when your horizon is much bigger when you're in an enterprise world. So Smita, what are your views for specifically product management on stakeholder management?
Very important. To summarize, one of the things I say is a key. I've used the analogy of a juggler for product managers. Like, you have 20 balls up in the air, make sure you're not dropping any of them. One of those very big, fragile balls is really communication, right? You're communicating in every direction to your stakeholders. Some who are your stakeholders, some who think they are your stakeholders, because, and I think you need to cast a wide net over communicate rather than under communicate. Communication to your teams, communication to engineering, communication to your customers, communication to your internal known and perceived stakeholders. And you're absolutely right. In some of the smaller companies that I worked at, it was pretty obvious because there was only a few people that you had to communicate with. But there too, frequent and complete communication, even if you think they know, don't make the assumption, communicate, right? The thing, I won't say it on a big panel like this, when you make an assumption, what happens, right? So with a larger company, it becomes even more paramount because there are, in highly matrixed organizations, like most companies are, right? You have a boss. There are many people who think they're your boss, right? So communicating to all of those stakeholders so that they can be successful in what they're doing is also very important. So I think stakeholder management is actually a very important part. And I've seen product managers fail, even though they're doing all the right things because they didn't communicate enough. So, when it's time for, let's say, progressing the product manager to the next level, it's a promotion time or something where we have to, progress this product manager in their careers, they'll say, I don't know who that is. Right? Because you have been invisible. You may be doing all of the great work, but you have been invisible to other folks that really need to know what you're up to.
Totally. I completely agree. Mohit, Divya, any quick thoughts on that?
No, I totally agree. If the product managers have to do one thing right, this is communication. Anything else you can cover up, but this cannot, because there is a history. There is like every day to day over communication. I just loved because Smita used that word, because that is the key. You cannot do your job properly without that.
Hey, actually, can I add one thing to my answer? And when you said over my own words, one other thing that a product manager needs to be really good at is identifying risks and communicating early and flagging it early and not surprising anybody about a problem when it's too late to do anything about it. Right? I say this to the product managers on my team and the product owners that we have. If you see, it's sort of like the signs you see in the subway system, right? You see something wrong, speak up, right? So see something wrong, speak up. Don't be afraid to be the bearer of bad news. That is your job. Like going back to your original comment about product managers seen as mini CEOs, if this were your company, would you care about what you're seeing that is not sitting quite right? Speak up. If you don't speak up, we don't know. We don't know what's happening. So that was the other comment on communication.
Because most likely, that's a very good point, Smita, because most likely you will be the first one after for example, if there is an engineering problem. After that, immediately after that, you will be the first one to know about it, right?
Exactly.
So I think if you see something, say something. It's perfect.
That's the one. I forgot that statement. Yep.
Yeah. Got it.
The thing I wanted to add, and something I've seen at GitHub and I love, adding to what Smita and Mohit said of over communication and open communication. Like what I see at GitHub is most of the communication is open communication. So everything happens in channels, public channels, happens in issues and discussions. So it's more about, like, I think big problem for product managers are those perceived unknown stakeholders that we don't know about. And open communication just makes it accessible to everyone because it's available. And instead of an email where you would have forgotten to CC anybody, because you didn't know they were your stakeholder, it's more on like you're not making the decision for them, they're making the decision where they want to be plugged in or not. So again, a way to actually help again, like Smita said, be over communicative, is also being that trailblazer in your company to foster open communication as much as possible. Do it in public so that you hear from a lot of folks as well. But it's also then, it's a fire hose plugin and yeah, if you want to, or if not. So I really just love that about working in GitHub, where for me, it was the first time where everything was accessible, and it was for me to decide what do I learn from and learn not about.
Wonderful. Over communication is the key here. We are home stretch. I want to be cognizant of each one of your time. So let's in next 5 minutes, let's do some fireside chat questions. The way we would do this is there are 5 questions that I'll throw at you, and I'll go sequence. I'll take your name and you will answer. You shouldn't take anything more than 5 seconds to think and answer. It's very quick answer that you need to throw. All of the above is not a kind of a option that you should select. But if you don't select anything in the options that I said, if you have any different option, feel free to add that. And then after you answer, take 15 to 30 seconds to for the reasoning why you selected that. Are we good?
We can choose only one, you're saying.
We can choose only one.
You can add an answer. Remember, I said I might add an answer.
None of the above.
Customized kind of a thing, but yeah, let's do that. So let me start with Divya. Divya, retention versus acquisition versus revenue.
Okay, if I have to choose one, it is acquisition, because without acquisition, there's no retention and no revenue.
Perfect, wonderful. Mohit, retention, acquisition, revenue.
For the same one, yeah, I would stay with retention, because the loyalty brings in the referrals, the revenue, everything, right? So yeah, we have Apple because of the loyalty, apart from other things, of course.
Sure, thank you. Smita?
I think my answer is similar to Divya's. Acquisition, because without acquisition, there's no revenue, there's no retention that you have to worry about.
Okay, thank you. The next question, I'll start with Mohit. Scrum or Kanban?
For me, it's Kanban. I've been using it, and the swim lane concept. You can visualize where we are, where do we do. Everyone is on the same page. If something is blocked for a few, let's say, sprints, everyone, coming back to the point that Divya mentioned about the open communication. So for me, it's Kanban all the way.
Perfect. Smita?
Scrum. So I didn't pick a third answer. It depends. But if I had to pick one of these answers, Scrum, I think for me, it's mostly because most of my products that I worked on are B2B enterprise class products. So it does require some definition of when is a release happening, and because enterprises have to plan for when they're upgrading, etc. So it needs a little bit more definition than a pure release train type model. So Scrum.
Wonderful. Divya?
So if I had to again choose one, it is Kanban for me. But again, going back to what Smita said, depends again based on situations. But where I am right now and how our product worked today, it's Kanban. And for the key reason of the work in progress, I think Kanban just like I follow that principle because you're not spreading yourself and your engineering team too thin, and limit that work in progress so that what we do really well.
Wonderful. The next question, Smita, to you. Frequent small releases or infrequent big releases?
It depends on how frequent is frequent. So I think infrequent big releases, that's to yesterday.
Yes.
I think frequent, again, frequent is a variable term. Frequent can be I've seen companies do like weekly, bi-weekly, truly following Scrum, where like your sprint, at the end of a sprint, you have a shippable product. Well, it depends on the kind of product. Large enterprise, B2B enterprise class product, nobody's going to take an upgrade every 2 weeks. right? So again, it depends on if you're an enterprise SaaS product. If you're a multi-tenant SaaS product, then nobody cares. You can be upgrading and everyone's getting the latest thing, right? So I would say frequent small releases.
Perfect.
Versus big bang once a year, 6 months, something.
Wonderful. And my last question, again, I'll start with Divya. Scalability or usability?
This is an interesting one. I think usability. Again, if the product is not usable, you don't have to scale. So I would pick usability.
Mohit?
Yeah, same. There's like, I doubt anyone would debate it out. it has to be. Every product that every product you build has to be usable. It's very simple.
True. Smita?
Same. I would say same and both.
After you have achieved usability.
Yeah, yes. Usability followed by scalability.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Hopefully you're building this for multiple customers and you're growing like crazy. So it has to be scalable.
Yeah. Excellent. And then note to the audience, again, as Smita said, there is no right answer. It generally depends on what situation, what stage your product is in, how mature you are in that process. Based on that, you would pick and choose these tools and techniques. But we have 10 more minutes left. We might go over by 5 minutes, if that's okay with all of you. I just want to touch base upon a few questions from the audience as well. So I'll start from the top. The first question, Rohit Bakshi asks, how does pricing function plays out for a PM or a product manager at a startup versus a product manager at a large corporate? Does PM driving pricing in both the scenarios? Anyone wants to pick that in?
Yeah, I can take that. So, you know, the classic MBA answer, right? It depends. So I have done pricing for my product line in larger companies where, in fact, like many of the deals would come to me for approval if there was a discounting done beyond a certain point. There is this concept of a price book. You know, first of all, pricing by itself is an art and a science. There is no formula for how you price a product. If you take any B school classes, they'll teach you it's this nebulous willingness to pay concept, right? But then there's the willingness to pay, but there's also, you know, the value you're driving with your product. And if that is so important, you can charge a premium for it, right? So there's so many aspects to defining pricing. So first of all, the definition of pricing itself, which I've been in companies where it's a collaborative effort between product marketing and product management, because marketing is determining those P's, the classic 3 C's and 4 P's, right? To determine how to price the product. So it's a collaborative effort. But then there's the concept of a price book. And then like, what are the different tiers? Are you giving discounts based on volume of number of users, etc.? So the difference between enterprises and small companies, if I had to draw a difference, it would be, you know, typically in a small company, a lot of decisions are made by the co-founder, CEO, the C-suite. Everyone gets involved in it. Versus a larger company where each product line, the head of that product line is making more of the decisions.
Sure. And if I may just add to that, when you define and decide pricing, we are moving from cost-based pricing to value-based pricing now. That's the value is at the core of everything when you define the price of that specific product. And that's where PM plays a very, very critical role as to what is that value that has been observed or realized by the end user, right?
Yep.
But well said, Smita, thank you. The next question is, this is an interesting one. Why does the definition of product management roles change so much from organization to organization? Unlike engineers, engineering managers, there is no ambiguity in that.
Yeah. So I think that's a very interesting one. I can go ahead if, yeah.
Please go ahead. Yep.
So yeah, so that's a very interesting one because the uh, as I was mentioning earlier, right? This is one of those functions which is trying to be formalized itself now. Like the industry is moving towards that. In last 20 years or so, we have seen this getting formalized. While the engineering, be it civil or be it manufacturing engineering has been a very constant part since last couple of centuries for sure, if not more. So that is one part. And second part is because there is no definition as such in itself. Like it's as Smita mentioned about pricing, the role of product management is and the product managers is also a mix of art and science, right? And that's where you will see a few job descriptions where they are very, I would say, very uh, typically asking for MBAs. And at times it is just that, and I saw one of the questions, why is it difficult for the developers to move to MBA? It's not. Without the MBA, how can they move to product management? It is not. I am the example. Divya is example. We are not MBAs. We are still product leaders. We are doing the stuff. It's a longer path. You have to learn certain skills on the journey, but that's how it is.
Yep.
To add to that, the only part I would like, you'll see multiple roles floating around: product manager, product owner, technical product manager, platform product manager. Like there are multiple roles floating around. And then again, going to our favorite answer, it depends on the company, what they are doing, which area are they in, what is the actual product doing. So again, if it's a platform product, you'll have a platform product manager or technical product manager if the work involved is working with a lot of different engineering teams. So that's the reason it's not constant. And I think we should enjoy that flexibility we get as well across companies. So it's not a cookie cutter role. It changes as you move along in different areas in the industry or the different product cycles or products.
And even, yeah, just to add on that, it all depends also on, like, if you are into a B2B space or a B2C space, or you're inward facing or you're outward facing, your role will change completely, even though your title will remain the same.
Absolutely.
So there's a variety to choose from.
Wonderful. The next question is by Vikram Gupta. He asked, how do organization decides its strategy in terms of going in for a product line extension versus continue pumping in more features in your base product? Is there any formula around it?
I can take a stab at that, and Mohit and Smita, you can add to it. There's no, again, formula to it, but it depends on the strategy of your product owner or whatever, the person who's making or looking at that bigger picture to see, can I drive more value of customer by enhancing my current product, or it has kind of reached its market share and adding or pumping more to it will not help me increase the market share or deepen my roots with my current customers. So there again, so it might be that you don't want to extend your market share, but if you can like deepen your engagement with your customer base and they move from your revenue streams to different revenue streams, that can help too. So it is very subjective of the product. And those are the analysis a product strategy person or your whatever head of product does to understand, am I getting more value of customer by investing in the same product, or do I diversify? And the personas are different, and should I go look at that area as such?
There is no one source or one size that fits.
There's no one. Yeah, product man, like again, in this field, there are very few.
It's a depends answer. I'm sorry, I love that depends answer.
and just to add on top of it, because working with VMware for almost 12 years, right? We are the pioneers for the virtualization, right? After the virtualization reached at a saturation point, there was a cloud. We had to make that journey, right? We started investing into that cloud journey. Today, like, there are multiple clouds to choose from, but still we want to move along with our customers and give them the choice of the cloud, right? So that's where the next phase of multi-cloud becomes important. So it's always, step-by-step investment where you are carrying your customer along with you, in the journey, because the landscape is changing, because the technology is changing, as you don't want to leave your customer behind, right? The acquisition point that we discussed about, that retention, right? Once you have acquired the customer, you would like to take them to the transformative journey as well. So you continue to invest. Of course, you do small first till you expand, have a big foot, and do that part.
Wonderful.
The only other nuance I would add, I know we're over time, is, I would say the product marketing, the go-to-market strategy you develop with product marketing, all of the above what Divya and Mohit said, but also to say, the tactics you employ in product marketing for expansion versus cross-sell versus new logo acquisition, these are different.
True.
Okay. And depending on, what that strategy is for the product, you may need to pump more money into an existing product, like I think the participant asked, versus like, do we develop a new module and start to charge a premium for that, which is again like a footprint expansion sort of a thing.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Smita. Absolutely makes sense. I'll just take one last question, because I believe this applies to a lot of different audience here. What is more important for the product manager? Savita asks this, the technical skills or business skills, because she's trying to navigate from a technical career to a product management, but not getting enough opportunities as such because she's very technical.
Both.
Actually, there is third also.
It depends.
It depends, and design, right? You have to have that neck for all three. It's a combination. This role, that is one of the, and that's, I think, widely accepted definition of product management, right? Where it's a combination of design, technology, and business. So you have to develop those skills enough. One can be strong. Of course, we all came from one journey, right? We all have one journey. And that's why there is a certain aspects which are stronger than the others. But you build that muscle over a period of time. And yeah, after that.
The other part I'll add, Savita, to your question, to the response is, use your current technical skill to your advantage. Like if you work for products for developers, like Mohit is for VMware, I'm working for GitHub or Microsoft, like products where your technical skills help you and you are closer to the developer as well, because you've been a developer, can help you bring on that product skills. And then if say B2C market interests you more, you can then move there once you've developed those product skills. So use your technical skill to your advantage and use, like, move to product for those areas.
Perfect.
Very well said. Very well said.
Thank you so much. I think we're 4 minutes over time. Amit is here. At the end of the day, regardless of the trade-offs, each role gives you a unique opportunity to grow. So keep learning, keep growing. And thank you so much, all the panel members, Smita, Divya, Mohit, for all your rich thoughts out here. Thank you to your audience for attending that. What a wonderful session. Thank you so much. Over to you, Amit.
Thanks, Abhijit. Thanks a lot for wonderful moderation here. And if I need to summarize today's session, I think it will take another hour. The learnings which we had from
Amit, we can't hear you.
Be a bit louder, Amit.
Yes. Yeah. So the learning which we need to, if I need to summarize, I will take another hour. So I will just use the powerful quotes which have been used during the session. Is, you are successful as your product. I think that's a wonderful quote here. The second quote is, as a product managers, if you see something, say something, right? There are powerful questions. Am I riding the wave or am I creating the wave, right? And finally, we need to see that a product manager is a different souls in different life, or basically roles or times primarily, right? So I think wonderful learnings, a great learning. There was a great audience support today. We could not complete all the questions, where the questions were keep coming, and due to paucity of time, we could not cover all that. But I think the panel is available on LinkedIn. They are available. You can reach out to them for your personal questions. You can connect with them. I will also request Smita and Divya to encourage the women in product management to be part of this NASSCOM Women Product Champion, basically initiatives. And a lot of things are happening from NASSCOM side. So we are creating the courses and the content for all kinds of product leaders here. There is a community, as I mentioned, the Slack channel community. We already given the link. Prashant has mentioned that. And there is a mentorship model also getting built up. And there is L1, L2, L3 mentorship model is already built up there. And we look forward for all set of people coming and contributing to this community. I once again thank you all for your valuable time and the inputs. Look forward to be connected with you and spread this community across the world. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.